Right. Can you see all right? The screen, everything?
Yes, it's good.
Okay, I'm just gonna. Okay, so Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai. So do the Mangalacharan first and say start. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmiltam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavobhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai. So we're going through the instructions of Canto 9, and amazingly that, we've finished Canto 9 and see what the Canto 10 or we move on forward, but we've stuck together, those who have stuck together till this part. So I seek the blessings of all the devotees who are here so that I can deliver these instructions as we've been compiling them as we go through each chapter every time. And Nabi Prabhu has done a wonderful job, and Jayanti Mataji, so, staying together and going through Srimad Bhagavatam, as he said, and Narayan Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Janam Udiriyet. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is, regularly attending in the classes and reading Srimad Bhagavatam is amazing. So we go to the instructions. So we know this Canto 9, this is the picture on Canto 9, and it's chosen appropriately, obviously, because this canto includes the pastimes of this picture showing the Lord Ram's pastimes as well. So they're inclusive. In very brief, so Sukadeva Goswami is just going very briefly because we're all familiar with the Ramayana and all the pastimes and Ram Leela and everything. So this is very briefly mentioned. So obviously this picture shows Ram, Sita and Lakshman and the deer and how it all leads to the big pastime. But just to remind, because Canto 9 is full of dynasties and names and so many children born of this, that is so complex. It can get complex. So obviously, I'm just going to a very recap of some of the things here. How, chapter 1, King Sadyumna becomes a woman, the dynasties of the son of Manu, the marriage of Sankhya and Shyamana Muni, Ambarish Maharaj's pastimes come in, Durvasa, how he gets spared. Then there's a downfall of Shubri Muni, descendants of Mandata, sons of Sagar, and meet Lord Kapiladev. So dynasty of Anshuman, pastimes, and the Supreme Personality of Ramchandra. So there's included Ramchandra's rules the world, dynasty of Kusha, the son of Lord Rama. So there's a list here, and it also includes Parshuram. There's the Lord Parshuram destroys the world's ruling class. So his pastimes of Parshuram comes in this canto. The dynasties of Purva, Rava, King Yayati, then also dynasty of Puru. There's a dynasty of Bharat Maharaj, uh, Ajamid. And ultimately, in last chapter, there's something about this Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. So there's quite a lot of pastimes included in this. And I'm the one to sort of say that I don't uh, remember some of these pastimes unless I go back and read over and over again, which is what we need to do. But it's not always very easy to remember names, and even the quizzes we've been doing, sometimes we can't answer some of those questions, but still we plod along. But these are the sort of dynasties, if you want to remember the names, starting from Manu, Vaivashvata, Manu, and Shraddha, all the way. I mean, I wouldn't know some of the names, but um, ultimately this continues down.
It includes Shavana Muni also.
Yeah, it includes Shavana Muni, the Anshuman here. I can just pick out some of the names here, but I wouldn't know all the pastimes here because it gets too complicated. And at my age now, Shobri Muni and 50 daughters here. Look, so um, it gets quite complex. So the Manus are administrators of universal affairs. The word man, or in Sanskrit, Manushya, has been derived from the name Manu. And for all the members of the human society are descendants of the original Manu. So according to the Vedic calculations, it says 14 Manus come and go in a day of Brahma, which is 4,332,000. Oh, it was so many years. Um, anyway. Sorry. Yeah. And Shraddhadev or Vaivashvata Manu, the seventh Manu in the current series, was begotten by Vivaswan in the womb of Samhi. So Vivaswan, obviously Manu comes from there. The history of the descendants of Vivaswanu are listed in the table. So anyway, it's get complex. So we start with this. We look at this picture, and can anybody comment on this?
Ambarish Maharaj, he is worshipping the Lord with opulence.
Yeah, with opulence. And Ambarish Maharaj was always engaging all his senses in the devotional service to the Supreme Personality of God. He's worshipping Krishna. So it says here that following the regulatory principles of Mahabhishek, and Maharaj Ambarish performed the bathing ceremony of the deity of Lord Krishna with all paraphernalia, and then he dressed the deities with fine clothes, ornaments, fragrant flower garlands, and other paraphernalia for worship of the Lord with attention and devotion. Um, with attention and devotion, he worshipped Krishna and all the greatly fortunate Brahmins who were free from material desires. So he was Maharaj Ambarish, he's a king, but he's still engaged in devotional service completely. That's one of the. But then it leads to the pastimes of this picture, which involves Durvasa Muni.
When he saw that by his mystic power, he saw that Ambarish Maharaj was has broken the fast. So he became very angry. He took his hair and wrote it on the floor, and the fire demon appeared.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Riaz. Ambarish Maharaj is just standing there. He had invited Durvasa Muni had come, but it says here, the king, uh, which you described quite easily because he was doing a Kadasi fast, and Durvasa Muni appeared on the scene um, unannounced. So he hadn't come, he wasn't invited, but he came unannounced as well. And then the king humbly requested the sage to eat. And obviously, Durvasa accepted, but because he wanted to um, go and have the ritual of bathing and meditating at Yamuna River. So then Durvasa Muni returns and he couldn't understand. By his mystic power, the king had drunk water without his permission, and he angrily spoke. Alas, just see the behavior of this cruel man. He is not a devotee of Lord Vishnu. Being proud of his material opulence and his position, he considered himself God. Just see how he has transgressed the laws of religion. Maharaj Ambrish, you have invited me to eat as a guest, but instead of feeding me, you yourself have eaten first. Because of this behavior, I shall show you something to punish you. So then, he uses his mystic power and he brings out this creature like a demon resembling the blazing fire. So this picture shows, the pastime. That's good. Thank you, Rian, for adding to that as well and the description here. But then obviously Durvasa Muni doesn't realize that he's actually
Out
offended.
of the Sudarshan Chakra was following him, so
Yeah.
there was someone who was running all over the universe.
He was running everywhere. He couldn't get away from the Sudarshan Chakra. And obviously, this is because of the offense, and Vishnu and Krishna doesn't tolerate. So the Sudarshan weapon is released by the Supreme Lord. So then, obviously, he goes to Lord Shiva. Then he goes to Vishnu, and he pleads and he begs for forgiveness or whatever. But then, ultimately, he can't just get away just like that. You know, I will go through next week sometime. Cover the pastimes based on Shivram Maharaj's book, which is really amazing. This dialogue between uh, Durvasa Muni and uh, Krishna. So we'll go through that. But obviously, ultimately, then he has to go to Ambarish Maharaj, who just stood there for such a long time. So much concern about Durvasa Muni. He didn't even, that's what the nature of a Vaishnava or a devotee is. So Durvasa Muni was very harassed by the Sudarshan Chakra. I'll not read all this, but just we know that um, he has, for the benefit of our entire dynasty, kindly favor this poor Brahman. This will certainly be in favor of all of us. So, he has to go and ask for forgiveness. So I'm just taking the information from the plates, So this concerns it. So we'll go through the instructions, some of the instructions. So in chapter 1, Manu got a daughter, Ila, instead of a son he wanted. This is due to different desires of his wife, Shraddha, whilst performance of a yajna. Then there is lamentation. So obviously there is no common kind of desire that both Manu and his wife had. His wife desired something else, and then obviously there was a different result, and then there's lamentation because there was no common. So such unclear desires and intention can produce wrong and unwanted outcomes. Srila Prabhupada instructs that in this age, the performance of yajna has been forbidden, but no one can properly chant the Vedic mantras. So such yajnas for fulfilling desires is actually forbidden in this age of Kali. And no one can chant mantras properly, and there are no qualified Brahmins to do it. And then if they do it, and if they get it wrong, like in this case, they got it wrong, and then it was a wrong result. So Manu got a daughter instead of a son he wanted. So therefore, the best performance of yajna is the Sankirtan yajna, which we know. We should chant the Mahamantra and involve ourselves in Sankirtan Yajna. Chapter 2, then, even though Shadra was cursed and he avoided the terrible consequences of becoming a Sudra due to devotional service he performed and instead returned home back to Godhead. So there was somebody called Shradra who was cursed to become a Sudra. And then, but in his next life, he actually got himself engaged in devotional service. And even though he's a Sudra, he actually didn't suffer that much. This is the powerful path of bhakti. This is how powerful the path of bhakti is. So he actually returned to Bangalore. So in that chapter 2, in this chapter, so chapter 3, Ashwini Kumars. being physicians in the heavenly planets, gives a youthful body to Shavana Muni. You know, somebody could get a youthful body. We all strive to get a youthful body. Um, this shows how advanced the medical science was and is. However, our focus should be good health for advancement in our bhakti. Not that we should get tangled up in this anti-aging or for bodily pleasures and all that. But Shavan Muni, gets a youthful body because he wanted to engage himself in material enjoyment, rather sense enjoyment. Chapter 4. In this chapter, we're instructed to understand and see how easily Durvasha Muni gets angered and Maharaj Ambrish remains unperturbed due to his fixed in devotional service. Thus, it shows the glorious qualities of a pure devotee and how the mercy of a pure devotee is necessary to receive Lord's mercy. So we just talked about that in a minute ago. This picture, now this goes on to some other chapters. This is
Kapila Muni burnt
yeah.
all the 100 sisters and Bhagirath pleased Kapila how what we had to do. So Kapila Muni told that we have to bring the Ganga to the earth.
Yeah, they were looking for this white horse. Obviously, the personality of God has said, "My dear Anshuman, here is the animal sought after by your grandfather for sacrifice. Please take it. As for your forefathers who have been burnt to ashes, they can be delivered only by Ganges water and not by any other means." So this pastime actually leads to the Ganges water being brought down to earth to deliver the great grandfathers, the forefathers that have been burned to ashes. Previously, Anshuman respected Kapila Dev, and previously his other son didn't actually respect the Kapil Dev. So this is the pastime that about Anshuman. This is how the Ganges then comes to by Bhagirath, he praying and he approaches Lord Shiva. And so some pastimes about that, the Ganges coming all the way. Lord Shiva takes the, so when King Bhagirath approached Lord Shiva and requested him to sustain the forceful waves of the Ganges, Lord Shiva accepted the proposal by saying, "Let it be so." Then with great attention, he sustained the Ganges on his head, for the water of the Ganges is purifying, having emanated from the toes of Lord Vishnu. So the Ganges comes from all the way from the toes of the Lord Vishnu. We know that Vaman Dev also, pierces the material coverings of the universe with his toe. So, this pastimes go on to that. So chapter 5, Srila Prabhupada explains the purport, continuing with Durvasha Muni, was certainly a powerful Brahman, but his acts against the pure devotee Maharaj Ambarish were no better than the activities of Asuras. As stated in the Shastras, Dharmantu Shakshat Bhagavad Panitam. The word Dharman refers to the orders or laws given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sarva Dharman Paritejai Mamekam Sharanam Vraj. Real Dharma is surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So only, orders and laws can only be given by the Supreme Personality of God. They are the real Dharma principles. Just like, gravity has been established by the Supreme Lord, no scientist can do it. But like that, there are so many other laws laid down by the Supreme Lord, and they are the true religion. So when Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, 1866, that, Sarva Dharma Paritaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraj. He said, just surrender unto me. You don't have to be surrendering to so many other personalities in this world and so enamored. So just Krishna is the ultimate shelter for us. So we should look at it. So therefore, real Dharma means bhakti, the devotional service to Lord. Chapter 6, with reference to Ikshvaku's yagya, Srila Prabhupada mentioned his purport. So quoting from Brahma Vaivarta Purana, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, ashwamedam gavalambam sannyasam palaparitram.
Palaprakram devarena sutotpatem
Go on.
kalau pancha vivarjayet.
Well done, Priyansh. We can read this. Go on.
In this age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden. The offering of a horse in a sacrifice, the offering a cow in the sacrifice, the acceptance of the order of sannyasa, the offering of the oblations of flesh to the forefathers, and a man begetting children in his brother's wife.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's right. So these are the instructions.
There is a story for the last one, a man begetting children in his brother's wife. There was a story.
Okay. Someday you can tell. Thank you. Thank you very much for reading that. And so we should understand what is appropriate for this age of Kali and Harinam Sankirtan as recommended yagya. So for Kali Yuga, we should understand what is. Now this leads to a bit of pastimes of Lord Ram, who breaks the bow, and of Lord Shiva's bow, and then he Sita garlands.
Taking Lord Shiva's bow. All others.
Yeah. Anything more you want to say?
That time when Lord Rama broke the bow, Parshuram came and he told, and he chastised Rama, and then he understood that this is the Supreme Lord himself, and he asked forgiveness.
Thank you, Riansh. Yeah, thank you for adding that, because Parshuram does come there as well. And then obviously this part of this canto covers Lord Ram's pastimes, which is included in the Sukadeva Goswami goes very briefly in the pastimes of Lord Ram. So this is where he has to build a bridge to rescue Sita Mata and attack Lanka. A bit of the pastimes of Lord Ram. Then he comes back to Ayodhya in a Pushpa Viman, and then people of Ayodhya receives him, and then he rules over Ayodhya. So these pastimes are included in this canto. So I'm just thereafter, Lord Ramchandra entered the palace of his forefathers. Within the palace were various treasures and valuable wardrobes. The sitting places on the two sides of the entrance door were made of coral. Yards were surrounded by pillars of Vaidurya money. The floor was made of highly polished Marakamani, and the foundation was made of marble. The entire palace was decorated with flags and garlands and bedecked with valuable stones, shining with the celestial effulgence. The palace was fully decorated with pearls and surrounded by lamps and incense. Men and women within the palace all resembled demigods and were decorated with various ornaments, which seemed beautiful because of being placed on their body. So this is when Lord Ram appears in Ayodhya. These are some pastimes, I think, of Urvashi. I think somebody gets enamored by Urvashi. So we'll come to that later on. Some of these pastimes of Parshuram is included in this canto. So I've included some of these images, so it reminds us of some of the pastimes and how Parshuram kills the Kshatriyas so many times. So by manipulating his axe and arrows, Lord Parshuram cut to pieces the shields, flags, bows, and bodies of Kartavaryajuna's soldiers who fell on the battlefield, muddying the ground with their blood. Seeing these reverses, Kartavirya infuriated, rushed to the battlefield. So this is about Lord Parshuram's pastime. So chapter 7. From the incident between Vishwamitra and Vashishta, cursing each other and becoming birds. So this was something about how they were cursing each other and became birds, continued fighting for a long time over Harishchandra. We can take instructions that the ever even great personalities can become a victim of sense gratifications. This is the material world. So in this material world, even though you might be like people like Vishwamitra, Vasishta, but they can actually get tangled up in cursing each other. Or so it says, Abrahmana Bhuvanal Loka Punar Avartino Arjuna. So Krishna is saying, so Prabhupada comments on this purport that within this material world or within this universe, however elevated one may be in material qualities, one must suffer the conditions of birth, death, old age, and disease. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. So these are the instructions we get based on this pastime between Vishwamitra and Vasishta, that everywhere there is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. Chapter 8, this verse is in this chapter clearly shows how Lord Kapila was greeted by the sons of King Sagar and one of his two wives, Sumati and Anshuman, when they were searching for the horse. So earlier on, that picture came. That should be with this actually, chapter 8. So Anshuman goes to look for the horse. They're the sons of King Sagar, actually, isn't it? So it's the pastimes of King Sagar was performing yagyas, and the horse was taken away by Lord Indra. The outcome is clear. Srimad Bhagavatam 9:8-28 says, the personality of God had said, my dear Anshuman, here's the animal soul. So we read this earlier on, how Ganges comes to the Supreme, to the planet Earth. We are instructed as to how the Ganges descended into the material world by Bhagirath, and Srila Prabhupada mentions in this purport that devotees and saintly persons advanced in the renounced order can deliver even the Ganges. Tirthi kurvanti tirthani shavanta sthana gadarvrita. Because saintly devotees always keep the Lord within the core of their heart, they can perfectly cleanse the holy places of all sinful reactions. So it's even Ganges, when people go to bathe in the Ganges and all that, then Ganges has to be purified. So who's going to purify me? Even the other holy places, like Prayag, and you say, how are they going to purify me? So, devotees, when they go and bathe in there, then they actually cleanse these holy places. That's why when devotees descend on this planet Earth, the burden, the sinful burden that the earth has to then carry is actually lessened or decreased by the presence of devotees. So Srila Prabhupada's footprints on this planet Earth will have lessened the burden of so much sinful reactions. I was never attracted, even in my childhood, by insignificant things and irreligious principles. I did not find anything more substantial than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I think somebody said that. Chapter 10, anyway, we'll move on. We are being instructed to perform Shraddha ceremony, and in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that to save a diseased person from ghostly life, a funeral ceremony or Shraddha ceremony as prescribed in authorized Shastra must be performed. Ravan was killed by Ramchandra, Lord Ramchandra, and was destined for hellish life. But by Lord Ramchandra's advice, Vibhishan, Ravan's brother, performed all the duties prescribed in relation to the dead. Thus, Lord Ramchandra was kind to Ravan even after Ravan's death. So from this example, we can see that, performing Shraddha ceremonies is very important. And even Arjuna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita that, if there is too much unwanted population because of this war and there is Varna Shankar Praja increased on this planet in the earth, then not many people will perform Shraddha ceremonies and all that. And then the forefathers will end up being in ghostly bodies, or, it's not nice for them. So this has to be performed, This is the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. So Lord is very merciful in this way. Srila Prabhupada explains in this purport in the chapter 11 One becomes envious because of being influenced by the designations of the body. But the liberated devotee has nothing to do with the body, and therefore he is completely on the transcendental platform. A devotee is never envious of anyone, even his enemy. Because the devotee knows that the Lord is his supreme protector, he thinks, what harm can the so-called enemy do? So although, Prabhupada explains that, but as devotees, we are all trying to become devotees. So obviously there's always some element of envious within us, but this can become less and less and less as we progress in Krishna consciousness. And, we're not totally on a transcendental platform. Otherwise I wouldn't be here. I'm certainly not there yet. But, certainly we have to decrease the envious nature of ours. A devotee who constantly engages in hearing and chanting is certainly freed from the disease of envy. And thus he becomes eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. So it's important that we keep on engaging in hearing and chanting and doing Shravanam, Kirtanam, then in that way we will be able to progress more in our bhakti. So chapter 12, at least 5,000 years ago, Sri Sukadeva Goswami ascertained the existence of Maru in Kalap Grama and said that Maru, having achieved a yoga siddhi body, would continue to exist until the end of Kali Yuga, which is calculated to continue for 432,000 years. Such is the perfection of mystic yoga. So Sukadeva Goswami could tell, some place like Kalap Gram would exist till the end of Kali Yuga. Such is the power of astrology or their predictions. So Srila Prabhupada confirms that here is a factual example of perfection. A yoga siddhi can live longer, can live as long as he likes. So some yogas, the yoga siddhas, yoga siddhas, who have achieved perfection can live as long as he likes. There are some yogis who still live in Himalayas and other parts of the universes for as long as they want to, but they're soul siddhis, Chapter 13, Srila Prabhupada explained the power of demigods in Koni with Maharaj Nimi. Koni, I don't know. One should not think that the demigods are powerful only in enjoying the senses. They are also powerful in such deeds as bringing life back to a dead body. There are many similar instances in Vedic literature. For example, according to the history of Savitri and Satyavan, Satyavan died and was being taken away by Yamraj, and on the request of his wife, Savitri, Satyavan was revived in the same body. This is an important fact about the power of the demigods. So demigods do have amazing powers, but most of the time they're always engaged in conflicts with the daityas and demigods, demons, and their positions are always being threatened. Like Lord Indra is always doing different activities, but they still have amazing powers being devotees. This is some pastime I think about. Yeah, Sharmishta unknowingly put Devyani's dress on her own body, thus angering Devyani, who thus spoke as follows. Or just see the activities of servant maid, some Sharmishta. Disregarding all etiquette, she has put on my dress, just like a dog snatching a clarified butter meant to use in sacrifice. So some pastime which Lord Shiva and going on the bull, but anyway, we'll come to that. There's some pastime, amazing. We should understand that Srila Prabhupada comments that omkar is a mantra or maha mantra, and Hare Krishna is also a maha mantra. The purpose of pronouncing omkar is to address the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudev. So when we say Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, so Om is actually a part of it's a maha mantra actually. And the purpose of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is the same. Hare, the energy of the Lord Krishna. O Lord Krishna, Hare, the energy of the Lord Rama. O Supreme Lord, O Supreme Enjoyer. The only worshipable Lord is Hari, who is the goal of the Vedas. Vedescha sarve aham Vedas. Veda, yeah. By worshipping the demigods, one worships the Supreme Lord. So I think that got cut off there. Oh dear. Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that Chanakya Pandit says that a cuckoo bird, although very black, is beautiful because of its sweet voice. In the same way, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra becomes beautiful by their qualities. Brahmins are beautiful when they are forgiving. Kshatriyas when they are heroic and never retreat from fighting. Vaishyas when they enrich in cultural activities and protect cows. And Sudras when they are faithful in the discharge of their duties, pleasing to their masters. Thus, everyone becomes beautiful by their special qualities. So each one of these in performing our duties can become, with our special qualities, we are beautiful in that way. Chapter 15, I don't know, 16, Prabhupada instructs in the purport whether one is a Kartavya Arjuna, Lord Parshuram, Jamagni, or whoever one may be, one must act very cautiously and sagaciously, otherwise one must suffer the result of sinful activity. This is the lesson we receive from Vedic literatures. So whoever we may be, there are reactions, sinful reactions. From this verse, the son of Kaishya was Kasi, and his son was Rashtra, the father of Dirgatma. Dirgatma had the son named Dhanvantari, who was the inaugurator of medical science and incarnation of Lord Vasudeva, the enjoyer of the results of sacrifice. One who remembers the name of Dhanvantari can be released from all diseases. So we should pray to Dhanvantari in this, for our good health, and the whole medical science comes from that part. We are being instructed to pray, remember Dhanvantari, to remain healthy, to carry out our devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Chapter 8, in this age, we see much material improvement, but still people are struggling to get more and more material opulence. Mana shastrani indrani prakriti sthani karsati. Although every living entity is a part of the Supreme Being, because of the lusty desires, one continuously struggles for so-called betterment of one's economic condition. To have a satisfied mind, one must give up his heart desire, a disease. The heart is heart disease of lusty desires. This can be done only when one is Krishna conscious. So to decrease that propensity to just enjoy. Therefore, regardless of the family in which one takes birth, when one is qualified with the symptoms of a particular section, he is to be described accordingly. Yal lakshanam proktam. One's place in a varna divisions of society is determined according to one's symptoms or qualities. This is maintained everywhere in the Shastra. Birth is a secondary consideration. The first consideration is one's qualities and activities. Just by our activities, we are the Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, but you can transcend that by being a Vaishnava. Chapter 19, in one of his purports, Srila Prabhupada makes reference to Prabodhananda Saraswati, who said, Vishwam Purna Sukhayate, one who becomes Krishna conscious by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, for him the entire world appears happy, and he has nothing for which to hanker. So this is, when we have the mercy of Lord Chaitanya is very, very important. So that we can decrease our hankerings, and then we should make note of the fact that when Prabhupada explained, therefore, regardless of his family in which he takes birth, one is qualified. I think I just read that. Oh, okay. So this one is about, I think, let's just say, Sukracharya was very angry, extremely angry.
Sukracharya was cursing Yayata.
Yeah. He was, yeah, that's right.
And he cursed that Yayati should become old.
That's right. Thank you. Past some of Yayati there, Yayati, and becomes very old. Sukracharya gets angry. Oh, and then this is Ranti Dev. Ranti Dev. He perceived the presence of Supreme Personality God everywhere and in every living entity. He received the guests with faith and respect and gave him the share of the food. The Brahmin guest ate his share and then he went away. So this was when he's giving, distributing prasad to whoever came is first. And then at last, when the Chandal came, and he even gave the last remnant of his food that he was supposed to eat, and he gave everything away. In this way, he um, realized that he could do without any prasad, or he can live without any sort of, he was respecting the guests. He saw the Supreme Lord in everyone's heart, so he always followed that principle. Having spoken thus, King Rantidev, although on the verge of death, so he was almost at the point of death because of thirst, he gave his own portion of water to the Chandal without hesitation, for the king was naturally very kind and sober. So he was very kind and sober. These are qualities of Rantidev. This comes in this canto's pastime. Srila Prabhupada explains in chapter 21 that Rantidev perceived the presence of Supreme Personality in every living entity, but he never thought that because the Supreme Personality of God is present in every living being must be God. Nor did he distinguish between one living being and another. He perceived the presence of the Lord both in the Brahman and in the Chandal. This is the true version of equality. So when you have to see with equal vision in the Bhagavad Gita also it says that, Vidya Vinaya Sampane, Brahmane Gavihastini, Suni Chaiva Supakacha, Pandite Samadarshina. So Samadarshina means equal vision when we see the Supreme Lord. The humble sage by virtue of true knowledge sees the equal
We
vision.
all in equal, even a dog eater also.
Yeah, all even a dog eater. Thank you, Rian. You want to say that verse again?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Go on.
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Suni Chaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshina.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you. You know your verses very well. You like Sanskrit. Keep up the learning of verses. Later, the idea that because Narayan is present in the heart of one who is Daridra or poor, the poor man should be called Daridra Narayan is a wrong conception. So Prabhupada actually explains that thinking that if the Lord is in a poor man's heart, Daridra Narayan, that doesn't mean that the Supreme Lord has become Daridra as well. By such logic, because the Lord is present within the hearts of dogs and hogs, the dogs and hogs would also be Narayan. One should not mistakenly think that Rantidev subscribed to this view. So Rantidev, although he had this equal vision of seeing a Chandal and a Brahman on an equal sort of level, it doesn't mean that, God is present and God becomes present, poor Daridana. So just because God is in everything doesn't mean that everything has become God. Just like heat and light are in the fire does not mean that it has become the sun, which emanates the heat and light. So fire will have heat and light, but doesn't mean that it's become the sun. So although we might have Supreme Lord within our heart on a partial as a super soul, doesn't mean we have become God. But that's the misconception of sometimes Mayavadis think that I can become God. This chapter also gives the background of even Sukdev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit and predictions of future of Moon dynasty, even after the end of Kali Yuga. So Srila Prabhupada specifically mentions the kingdom of Manipura as a Vaishnav state. So Manipura is actually was a Vaishnav state. In Vrindavan and Navadvip, there are many temples constructed by the king of Manipura. Some of our devotees belong to the Manipura state. The Krishna conscious movement, therefore, can be well spread in the state of Manipur. Manipur is north of India, and I know one devotee, Swarup Damodar Das. Yes, he came from Manipur. So there are quite a few devotees there. Chapter 20, Srila Prabhupada makes it very clear in his purport that although the Lord maintains innumerable universes within the period of his breath, he is dressed with a form exactly like that of a human being. That does not mean, however, that he is a human being. This is his original form. But because he looks like a human being, those with a poor fund of knowledge considers him as an ordinary man. The Lord says, Avajanti Mam. Go on, Riyansh.
Manushim tanum ashritam param bhavam ajanantam mama bhuta maheshwaram.
Go on, read this out.
Total, I have to read the translation also.
Yeah, go on. Yes, go on.
Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme domination over all that be.
Thank you. Thank you, Riyan. So we should not think that, because Krishna has got a human form, we are made in the image of God, as they say, man is made in the image of God. Um, so they don't understand very much, but actually Krishna does have two arms and he has a human form, but he's a transcendental human form, from which we are part and parcel of somehow. So this is where,
Shukadeva Goswami.
that's right, yes. Sukadeva Goswami is in the womb. He would not agree to come out. So there you say that Vyasadeva maintained the daughter of Jalabi as his wife, and they performed penances together for many years, placed his seed in the womb. The child remained in the womb, the mother, for 12 years. And when the father asked his son to come out, the son replied he would not come out unless he completely liberated from the influence of Maya. Vyasadeva then assured the child that he would not be influenced by Maya, but the child did not believe his father, for the father was still attached to his wife. So Vyasadeva then went to Dwarka and informed the Supreme Personality of God about his problem, and the Personality of Godhead, at Vyasadev's request, went to Vyasadev's cottage. So this is where Krishna comes to Vyasadev's cottage. There he assured the child in the womb that he would not be influenced of Maya. So Krishna has to actually reassure Sukadeva Goswami in that way. Thus assured, the child came out and immediately went away as a Parivrajak Acharya. So that's why he's one of the Mahajans, and he recites the Srimad Bhagavatam. So when the father, very grieved, began to follow the son, Sukadeva Goswami, the boy created a duplicate Sukadev who later entered family life. So there was a duplicate Sukadev created, who actually went into family life, but the original Sukadev Goswami just went away like a Parivajakacharya. Therefore, the Sukha Kanya, or daughter of Sukadev, mentioned in this verse, is a daughter of a duplicate or imitate. The original Sukadev was a lifelong brahmachari. So we should understand, I think there was some clarification there by Prabhupada as well. So just to finish off now, this is Kunti there, I think, where as soon as Kunti called the demigod of the sun, he immediately appeared before her. She was very surprised. She told the sun god, I'm simply examining the effectiveness of his mystic power. I'm sorry I've called you unnecessary. Please return and excuse me. So Kunti Devi was just trying to see if this mystic power that's been given does actually work or not. How effective is it? But it proved to be effective, and sun god appears. And then she said, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to bother you, called you unnecessarily. But then the sun god says, no, I have come by as a demigod. I can't leave you without giving you something in return. So she gives birth to a sun god, which is Karna. I think this is the last chapter. In Vrindavan, the Lord not only took part in the loving affairs with his father and mother, the gopis and the cowherd boys, but also gave liberation to many demons by killing them. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Paritranaya sadhunam vinasaya cha duskritam. The Lord appears in order to protect the devotees and kill the demons. This was fully exhibited in personal behavior. So Lord Krishna, there's some pastimes about Lord Krishna. The canto finishes off talking about Lord Krishna a little bit. So assisted by the descendants of Bhoja, Vrishni, Andaka, Madhu, Surashena, Dashar, Kuru, Sanjaya, and Pandu, Lord Krishna performed various activities. By his pleasing smiles, his affectionate behavior, his instructions, and his uncommon pastimes like raising Govardhan Hill, the Lord appearing in his transcendental body, pleased all the human society. So there, Krishna, at the end of 9th canto, in the 24th chapter, we find the hint of Krishna's beauty. So 9th canto then finishes off giving us a hint of Krishna's beauty. And so we proceed to the 10th canto, which will be the entire Srimad Bhagavad Purana is the embodiment of Krishna's form. 10th canto is his face. So there you are. That's the conclusion of 10th canto. Coming on to the Krishna's pastimes in the 10th canto, which is Krishna Leela. So sorry if I've taken it much longer, but I think I've done it in.
No, it's fine. Very good. Well done.
Oh.
Very good effort.
Oh, God.
It's the whole of the 9th canto.
The whole of the 9th canto with so many
Well
different
done.
pastimes and all that. And thank you for Rian's for
Contribution.
supporting me as well, which is always nice. So thank you much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Yay.
Canto.
Yay. Any questions, any comments?
Any comments?
Thank you, Prabhu. Such a nice, long resume. It's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Nice summarized, Krishna.
Yeah, nice shorts. So a review, and including instructions that we get from 9th canto and all that. So thank you very much for staying with the whole presentation. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
All glories to assembled devotees.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.